All right, check it out. We are driving around Atlanta, and I'm talking about what I'm seeing going on in the housing market now, right? And maybe hopefully give you some long-term tips when it comes to homeownership and, buying, selling home, whatnot, as always. Today's episode is brought to you by not Dunkin' Donuts, but caffeine. It's caffeine. It keeps me moving. Anyway, so hey, let's get into why now is a great time to buy a home in Atlanta, Georgia. And I think really anywhere, it's always a great time to buy a home, as long as it fits your budget, right? Do you have a budget? So let's get into, reasons why it might be a good idea to buy a home in the Atlanta area, right? So we're gonna start out with maybe you're renting, right? Well, you are building your own wealth, not your landlord's, right? Because when you pay, and people are concerned about interest rates, all the time talk about interest rates post-COVID, because they're not as low as it was during COVID, and it's never interest rates are never going to be COVID low ever again. People need to understand that, period. That being said, rent is technically 100% interest versus 6.5%, 7% interest right now, which is kind of your historical average. Now, so let's talk about that. So you are building your own wealth when it comes to owning a home versus your landlord's, period. Number one, all right? Hey, that is a great reason to buy a home, right? The average renter's net wealth is around $12,000 versus the average homeowner's, I think it's $400 or I forget the exact number. It's a huge disparity. Maybe it's $250 is the average homeowner's net wealth versus someone who rents. So, ultimately, building net wealth for long term is a big reason to maybe buy a home. In Atlanta has a long history of appreciation. Okay, that is a big deal, right? If your home is appreciating, you're building value, right? So, and because Atlanta is a growing city, which gets into some of the other reasons, it's incredibly helpful to purchase a home versus renting. Or if you are upsizing, right, it's a great time to buy a home because your home is appreciating on the total value, not just what you put down. For instance, let's say you put down 5%. On a $500,000 home, that's $25,000. That investment is appreciating on $500,000. Even if you think it's a 3% appreciation, 3% appreciation on $500 a year is $15K, right? That is a solid appreciation on a $25,000 investment. So that is definitely something to consider when purchasing a home. Now, you can lock in a housing payment, right? And this is true. You may see some changes in your mortgage payment, though, right? For instance, if you have rent, you could potentially see rent going up every single year, whereas your mortgage payment will stay relatively consistent. The only thing that may change is, of course, insurance and taxes. So that could affect us slightly. It could go up some, but overall, you're not going to see generally massive increases in your mortgage payment every month. Well, I have seen $200, $300, $400, and $500 increases in monthly rent. Yes, $500 increases. Absolutely insane. So it's a huge reason to buy versus rent. Every single year, you wait to get that bigger home or a home in general versus renting, that housing payment is going to get more expensive to buy a home. At least in Atlanta, and I mean generally, right? People are like, oh, well, what if we see a market crash? On a long enough timeline, housing values go up, period. That's just how the housing market has worked in general. So it's going to get more expensive for you to own a home if you wait to buy that home. Hey, Atlanta keeps growing. Supply and demand. This is a big deal, all right? Atlanta, 6th, 7th largest metro in the U.S. We have had an average of 70 68,000 people move here. I think it's maybe 65 to 70, 68,000 people per year over the course of the last 5 years. Supply and demand. They are not building 70,000 homes. It's not happening. So guess what? Houses will tend to continue to get more expensive, especially in the desirable neighborhoods. That's just a fact of living in Atlanta. We don't have 6th and 7th largest metro pricing. We don't have the same prices as Miami, right? DC, Los Angeles, New York. So, next, home ownership helps build long-term wealth. Some say generational wealth, and it does actually, because one, if you have a home, and you buy that home, and when the unthinkable eventually happens, your family will sell your home, and that helps your family with whatever they're going through in their life. That helps them continue to build wealth. Versus if you were renting, then there's not that large investment to pass down to your family. So helping build generational wealth and wealth for your family is a big part of owning a home. It really is. So it's absolutely something worth considering. All right, I am getting ready to exit here. Got to pay attention to the road, if you will, so I can't keep talking this whole time. Of course, I'm in the wrong lane. All right, here we go. Let's keep it moving. Hey, you gain leverage through appreciation, right? As your home appreciates, you build up equity. You can use that equity for, take a home equity line of credit, right? What can you do with that money versus, hey, you're not building equity if you don't, if you rent, right? If you don't own your home. So, building up that leverage through equity is a big deal. Traffic is not cooperating with me today. All right, hey, interest rates can change. This is a big deal, right? People are concerned, again, about the interest rates, 6.5%, 7%, whatever they're at right now. Those change, right? Those will go down. I wouldn't expect much below 5.5 ever again, right? If we get down to low 6s, high 5s, mid 5s, that's going to be a great interest rate. Below 5, that's a tough call, right? Like below 4.5, I highly doubt you'll ever see that again. So ultimately, interest rates are what they are. And you're going to have to deal with that. That 6%, 5.5% is ultimately not going to be a terrible interest rate when it comes to having a home. So hey, let's talk about this. Last bullet point here. Homeownership gives you stability. All right, like you don't have to worry about a landlord who's deciding to sell, all right? You get the freedom to personalize your home, right? You can paint your home, you can remodel your home, you can change fixtures, you can change, the hardware, the handles, all the things you want to do to make the home yours, you can do. It's just housing security for your family, right? If you were renting a home, you have a family, and your landlord decides to sell, right? You got to up and move your kids. Do you possibly have to change school districts? One would hope you don't have to, but what happens if you were renting a house in a high demand school district and all of a sudden you can't find a rental in that school district anymore? That is a big deal. That makes it very hard. So ultimately, when it comes to buying a home in Atlanta, right? The Atlanta market is a great place to own a home, to buy a home. Obviously, yes, this is the profession I work in. I'm going to push for this. At the same time, I believe in it because I see the benefits of long-term wealth, and I see what's happening in the Atlanta market with growth and businesses continuing to move here. It should be a solid market for years to come. And I think finally right now, supply and demand, right? There is a higher level of inventory in Atlanta than we have seen in quite some time. This is as high as we've seen since the end of the last crash, about August of 2012. I think is the time frame we're looking at. And so with inventories that high, buyers have choices, right? They have the opportunity to choose a home, not rush into purchasing a home, versus when interest rates come down, you're going to have a lot more buyers coming off the fence when it comes to buying a home. And what will happen then? You're going to have more competition for buying a home. More competition means lower inventory, means less seller paid concessions, right? Less negotiating ability. So ultimately, when there is a higher interest rate and more homes on the market, you're going to have the freedom and the ability to choose your home. I mean, you're always going to have the ability to choose your home, but there's going to be less pressure and less competition. So hopefully all that's helpful. Hey, I'm Tony Teutsch with Living and Moving in Atlanta. If I can ever help you buy or sell a home in Atlanta, Georgia, or anywhere in surrounding Atlanta, right? Alpharetta, Dunwoody, Sandy Springs, Cumming, and Marietta. I think I got, all the Chastain Park, Buckhead. If I can help you buy or sell a home, any of those places, let me know. And if I can be a long-term resource, help you take care of your home. I got a great vendor list. My goal is to be a long-term resource. So all that being said, I'm Tony Teutsch with Living and Moving in Atlanta. Let's make those real estate dreams a real estate reality.